Hello and welcome to Give and Toke Cannabis Conversations, the show that elevates the conversation about cannabis to a higher level. I'm your host Paul, and today we welcome Jonathan Jones, who is the Chief Executive Officer of Treehouse Distribution. A High Times Cannabis Cup winner with years of experience in North America and Europe, Jonathan noticed the shortcomings in Australia's medicinal cannabis market, and his focus has now shifted to the production of high-quality cannabis grown for Australian consumers. Passionate, hardworking, and occasionally outspoken, Jonathan is a unique and important voice in the Australian cannabis industry with his demonstrable understanding of the intersection between corporate and legacy cannabis. If you enjoy what you hear on today's show, please make sure you follow us on Instagram at GiveandToke, and if you'd like to get in touch, send us an email at giveandtoke@gmail.com. And if you really want to support the show, 5-star ratings and reviews really help. I talk about this all the time, but it really means the world to me, and thank you so much to the people that have already taken the time. Those ratings help us shoot up the charts, they help us beat the algorithm, and they're super important for growth of the show. So again, thank you so much to the people who have already left ratings and reviews. Make sure you follow, subscribe, all those internet things the kids tell you about. But for now, please enjoy my conversation with Jonathan Jones. Welcome to the show, Jonathan Jones.
Mate, much appreciated. Thank you for taking the time and having me on.
It's a real pleasure to have you here. I'm looking forward to picking your brain and getting to know you better. But you recently visited Spain, attending the Spannabis event, which looked amazing, by the way. What were some of the highlights from your time there?
I guess, look, me and the team have always kind of enjoyed these events. So, some of the boys have been going for 7 years, myself and a few others, 3 or 4. It's just a good environment. We wanted to start our year off with a good event, catch up with a lot of good people that we know from around the globe, and why not do it at Spannabis and in Barcelona of all places. So, yeah, man, it's just a good place to go and jam and hang out with a bunch of good people and try some new flavors and see what's happening.
I know, we're both big advocates for the medical cannabis industry, but it's such a blessing to be able to go and enjoy an adult use market and enjoy flavor profiles and terpenes and, all the aesthetics and the fun of cannabis. So, I bet it's kind of good to just break free of the medicinal and have a bit of fun in Spain.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I've had this conversation so many times, medicinal medicine and kind of adult use. For me, it's just you're a consumer of medicine, no matter what market it is. So, like you just said, it's for me, it's great to get away from the strict pharmaceutical space and appreciate more cultural. That's really big for us, but also you just want to see what's out there and who's setting the stage for what we can bring into the medical space.
It's exciting that you're out there, trying not to just sell crappy cannabis, man. I know that you care a lot about it, and I'm looking forward to talking to you more about that. So, you've obviously just announced your position as CEO of Treehouse Distribution, and we're going to get there soon in this episode. But first, we want to start kind of as early in your career as is comfortable and is relevant. So how did you get your start in cannabis?
My real journey started in the early 2000s. I started going to Europe, to Amsterdam. I just wanted to get an understanding of what this was. I was really intrigued as a young dude. Just, I grew up surfing, grew up skating. So, of course, cannabis was around. So a friend and I left school early. We said, you know what, let's get on a plane. Let's go to Amsterdam. Early 2000s, probably 2007. And we went back 7 times between then and 2010. I guess you could say consumption, culture, we kind of found something there. And then as time went on, met some really cool people there. We ended up moving to Canada, living in Vancouver for a while. Also, just starting to learn the trade, if you will. From there, we traveled around from different parts of Canada, having a look at grows. Obviously, at that point, it was still very underground, if you will. But, a couple of young snowboarders just kind of were very intrigued about a plant, and we seemed to use snowboarding as the excuse to go where there was cannabis. And so, yeah, look, we cut our teeth, did what you call an apprenticeship, mid-2000s. From there, kind of grew up, became a photographer, worked in fashion, snow, skate, and outdoor lifestyle stuff. And then just from there, obviously never let go of the passion for the plant, was always a consumer. And then found myself back in Europe, probably 2013, 14. Then short stint back to Australia, met a girl as you do, followed her over to America. And that's where everything started. We were kind of going back and forth while I was still traveling. So I think we kind of settled in Colorado about 2014. First tried to start off in Nashville, and I guess it was just not the vibe. Cannabis was just not really a thing. So I convinced my girlfriend at the time to just like pack her life up, leave a good job. Let's move to Colorado, grow some weed. You can get a job in a dispensary. And yeah, man, that's where it started.
Very, very cool. You've mentioned that there's the outdoorsy lifestyle part of this. You're a snowboarder, things like that, where you use that as an excuse to head around Canada. I'm curious to know kind of what your personal relationship with cannabis is. A lot of people think it's the lazy stoner. That's not true when it comes to you. You know, you're a CEO of a company, you're outdoorsy, you're active, you're moving all around the world. This is the opposite to what the worst people think of stoners. So how does cannabis fit into your lifestyle, and what is your relationship with it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I have been asked this before, and I've never really had the ability to answer it. I've just never had the time to think about it. Um, as a young kid, I always wanted a little bit more. So I've always had, I guess you could say, a hustler's ambition to just want to have a little bit more, want to do a little bit more. And I have severe ADHD. So I found for me, cannabis was the recipe for me to focus and kind of plan. It allowed me to kind of step back out of the fast paced life here in Sydney and really look at, all right, these are the things I want to do, these are the things I want to achieve. And then also heal. Being active, skateboarding and snowboarding, you do hurt yourself a lot. So then seeing other guys around me use cannabis as more of a healing method, medicine, as you will, to kind of, take the pain away, not be on the opiates or taking painkillers. That started that whole process for me. It wasn't because I like getting high. I actually hated it the first few times I did it. I thought, this is a waste. Like just, and then I started to realize, like you have a long day, a big gym session. It just became a part of a routine. From then, look, I've gone on to build 6, 7 figure monthly businesses. I've gone on to create brands that have become staples in certain industries and have now replicated that in the cannabis space. So I guess you could say the lazy stoner thing, I always call bullshit on it from a big perspective is Mary Jane doesn't screw you, you screw her. And so the more you consume, the more you dabble in the what not to do, I think that's when life starts to fall apart. That's just in us as humans. We love to have an excuse. So cannabis tends to be that kind of fall boy of, oh, well, I got too stoned, so I'm not going to do it. And hearing that growing up, I grew up in kind of middle class Sydney, went to private schools, got kicked out of private schools. When people knew that you smoked pot, you were the bottom of the barrel. And so growing up where I grew up, I always wanted to change that stigma just about me. It wasn't about, my group of friends or whatever. It was just what my parents thought, what my family thought. And so I always strive to do more. At the moment, my routine is I'm up at 5. I spend time meditating. I'm in at work with the team from 7 to about 7 or 8. We get coffee, then do a full day. I hit the gym for an hour and a half. I then have dinner, sauna, and then stop. That's my life. And so I don't have time to be lazy. I have time to heal, and the rest is make sure that we're our company's on purpose.
I love that, and it's quite, not to be a wanker, but it is quite inspiring because that's what people need to hear. I had Juan and Camilo from Green Shepherd on the show recently, and they spoke a lot about their desire to make cannabis, something that is a part of people's day, not the only thing you do that day. It enhances your day, it improves you, it heals you. It's not something that is just the whole chunk of the day. And I can certainly be guilty of that, of writing off half a day because I've got some, dank buds, but it's really not, it's really not the whole point. We're all guilty of that, I'm sure.
Yeah, of course. Look, I think you have to have down days, right? For some of us, it motivates us, it makes us want to do more. And look, for others, like they just want to kick back and chill. I have no qualms or queries with that. For me, I smoke enough to maintain a good rhythm and routine in my lifestyle, and it goes a lot deeper than that, which we can touch on. But that's the main thing. Look, I would challenge anyone who doesn't smoke weed and says people are lazy to just work as hard as some of us do, and you would see that consumption's not the issue. It's within the human being.
Now you mentioned, building brands and the kind of success that you've had in that area. Let's talk a little bit about the kind of journey within the Australian cannabis industry from your early brands right now to Treehouse Distribution. So
Sure. So it was a bit of a journey to get back to Australia. So in my time in the States, obviously won a few awards, built a little bit of a kind of an understanding of what the patient or the consumer wanted. So from there, I was a designated grower for medical, and I did some rec, and then medical rec, and then just plain open rec. In 2019, my mum got cancer, so I came home and kind of was looking for opportunities here, and I went to this trade show. It was a hemp show the year before, and I met these two dudes who it's funny, full circle, are now my business partners. So I met these two guys. I wanted to get a cultivation license, and so used their service, and we got the license. And then when I came home in 19, I was kind of, in between. Do I go back to the States? Do I stay here? What do I do? And COVID hit. And so I was kind of in limbo of what to do with work. And I then just started to become a carer for my mum. And we went down the prescription route. We're looking at all these products. And, I started to see the quality that was out there. It was quite abysmal compared to, what I was used to, what mum was used to. And so that was it. From that point, I decided, through COVID, I'm going to build a brand. I'm going to build a platform that will allow me to enter the market in Australia and then move into cultivation. And so a good friend of mine, we built a brand called High Country. I don't know if I can really, yeah, actually I can, because it's not my brand in the market now. So we built a brand, High Country. It was more of that kind of lifestyle vibe kind of packaging to it. It's got the mountains. It's, the high country. It's not about getting high. It's about the mountains and enjoying the outdoors kind of thing. So we built that. I then met a CEO and a founder of another large company in Sydney. We got chatting, and I decided to sell High Country to that entity. I then joined that entity for 2.5 years, where we built High Country to what it is now. I'm not too sure what it's doing in the market, but it was a very popular, I guess, reaction for 2 years. And from there, I was going back and forth to their sites in Canada, their sites in Jamaica, and helping rebuild and re-educate their cultivation sites. And that was a huge experience, because, look, coming from where I'd come from, we weren't necessarily playing in the corporate space. There's a lot of money. There's a whole lot of big players in the rec space in America, but not how it's structured here in Australia. So it was a huge learning curve for me. I had to learn how to be prim, proper, well-dressed, how to address people appropriately, and not just have a black market or a legacy opinion. So I really learned how to kind of conduct myself within those environments a little more proper. And, we made a very successful business. We made a very successful brand. That company is one of the largest here in Australia. Then through that process, I just wanted to go back to cultivation. The more I saw, the more product I saw entering the market, I just knew that that's where my heart lay. And then around Christmas time, this year, my mum got liver cancer and then passed away about 4 weeks later. And, I was sitting there and she said to me, you have to follow what you wanted to do from the start. And that was always being cultivation. So, after getting the cultivation license early, I'm one of the first 10 or 15 licenses, which was, whoop-de-doo. Never really thought at that point that we were going to activate and do that. And I guess last year I was having coffee with the same two guys who did my license in Amsterdam, funnily enough. I was in Amsterdam figuring out, like, what am I going to do? Do I consult to more of the big brands, help them, or do I, go back to the States and Europe and see what's happening there? And I thought, no, I'm going to do something in Australia. So in Amsterdam, coffee shop as you do, trying some flavors, met with my two of the founders of Treehouse. We kind of bounced some ideas back and forth about, what they wanted to do, what I wanted to kind of do once I'd parted ways with said entity. And, I just felt that there was a vibe, like there was something there with these two guys. And I told one of the boys this the other day. When they did my license, I thought, you know what, I'm going to do something with these guys when the time's right. So full circle, we have that meeting. I then come back to actually I go to Spannabis, hang out with them again at Spannabis, then come back. So you can kind of see a timeline developing between Spannabis and Spannabis, right? We spend a week in Spain. We then realize we have a lot of mutual friends from around the globe. And I thought, you know what, actually, this is something I want to put time into. So came back to Australia, the same dude I built High Country with, or one of the three I built High Country with. I said to Timmy, I was like, hey, there's these dudes over in Amsterdam. We need to connect with them. I think it'd be a good place for you to see what you can build over there. And then I'll just be the investor. So that was the plan. I was just going to invest in the treehouse. And then things started to snowball. The licenses come through, wholesale, import. Then, the group gets together and they call me and they're like, hey, we're going to go to Canada and check out some product. And me being me, there's no way I'm going to shear away from a 4.5 week trip, visiting farms, seeing friends that I haven't seen for a long time, and participating in what we all love, and that's, consuming good flavors. 4 of us booked flights, set off to Toronto, and then, we toured 30 facilities, tried 80 plus strain or genetics, probably smoked 60 plus phenos, and curated a line that we would be proud of. In that whole time, Treehouse became a business. Now we're here today, I guess, which is a pretty wild thing to see. We've been in the market for 3 months. We never thought we'd touch what we do now in 12 months. The hard work that the boys have put in and just the pure passion is the reason I've stayed in the space till now. And so I guess that's the story behind Treehouse. It's just 4 dudes who get along. They have an understanding of what good cannabis is, what good medicine is, how it should be grown, how it should be dried, how it should be cured, how it should be processed and packaged and stored and then treated. It became very evident to us that we're one of very few within our space doing what we're doing. And so our whole thing at Treehouse is, if we wouldn't consume it, we wouldn't pack it, we wouldn't sell it.
And it's funny that you even kind of have to have that mission, because it clearly means that there's others out there who are selling stuff they wouldn't consume themselves.
Look, it is wild, I do have a bit of a loud LinkedIn presence, if you will, but it's more so, it's not about the people, it's about us as an industry, that we all should know we can do better. And the way you're thanked for doing better is the patient. If you give someone a service that they appreciate, an unboxing experience, a quality of product that, they actually appreciate consuming, well, then they're going to come back again and again and again. And that repeat business is what I think a lot of these companies forget about. For them, it's about, raise more money, buy more garbage, get a hefty margin on really poor product, and it just has this snowball effect. And I think that's left a bit of a nasty taste in a lot of consumers' mouths and pockets. We're just not educated enough here in Australia, and it's no fault to anyone. It's no, you can't point fingers at anything or anyone. It's just not a lot of Aussies took the time to spend half of their life learning about medical cannabis, or just damn pot. And I think that's where the Treehouse team kind of came together and realized that, one, we never worked for big groups before. Why would we do it now? And so that whole thing came on, and I joined the boys full time early this year, which was, I just kind of, with what was going on in my personal life, I wasn't sure if I wanted to take on a CEO position. And then, sitting back, looking at, what I've done in the past and what these guys are doing, I thought, you know what, let's light a match and really send this jet to the moon.
You're obviously passionate about the Australian cannabis industry, and in that answer, you shared your observations and experiences of some of the challenges. What do you think we're getting right thus far? Because, when I came back from Canada a couple of years ago after working as a bud tender, I was really excited about what we have. And on one hand, there's the optimist in me who loves so much of what we got, but we've obviously got a hell of a long way to go. So, first I'll ask kind of, what are we getting right here?
Oh, look, we're getting a lot of things right, to be honest. The quality standards that we have here in Australia allows us to be one of the more progressive and aggressive players in overseas markets. You look at the UK, Germany, Brazil, soon to open up, Japan, then you got Portugal, Colombia. The list goes on, Malta. What Australia has done is they've created the ability for us to export and be proud of high standards. The problem is 95% of the cultivators here can't meet those quality standards, in my opinion, which is the sad thing. We've gone above and beyond to make sure we have some of the strictest, stringent rules and regulations around product, but yet people can still send out moldy flower. So it's a double-edged sword. What we're doing really well is kind of the regulation and the industry standards, but then on the other side of the fence, it's like we're still so unbalanced.
Yeah, right.
And
the theory's there, not necessarily the practice.
Yeah, the theory's there. And look, it is hard to say to people, hey, you should have been growing this for 20 years or 15 years. It's just near impossible here in Australia legally. So that's one thing. The other thing too, what I can see is that Australia is a prime producer. We're known for producing quality. To be a huge player in the global medical cannabis market, I think is a massive positive for this country. It shows that we do adhere to good manufacturing practices. We do want to have clean, pristine, smelling, looking product. Like, that's just what I think Australia strives to do in any industry. You look at the wine, you look at the meat, whatever industry we might look at. There's so many points that we do right, but then there are also so many things that we do wrong.
Well, I mean, on that note, whether they're quick wins or big picture, what do we have to get right? What's still, right in front of us to do well?
I'd say for anyone wanting to do well is pick up a book, download some good podcasts, and pay attention to what people have been doing in the past. And I don't mean just success stories. Pay attention to the companies who have fallen off, who have raised hundreds of millions of dollars and still didn't get the bottom line right. So it's looking at those and figuring out, well, what did they do wrong? What shouldn't I do? And then what are people who are making waves in other areas, i.e. the rec space, doing right? And I think when you combine both of those, you get a model that works, because you have people who understand the business, i.e. the regulatory side, the more sooty side, if you will. And then you have the people who understand the plant and how it should go to market. Well, if you can get both of those parties to align, that's something really powerful. And I think that is starting to get motion here in Australia. Your business people are starting to now understand, hey, we're only half a cup. If we look at, the other half, well, now we've got a full cup. We just need to work together and not look at certain genres of people as, lazy couch people.
The smartest corporate people I've spoken to, understand the importance of the legacy market, and you acknowledge it yourself, coming from the other side where it's like, stepping up to the corporate game, understanding, how to play that game a little bit, cosplay as someone who's corporate, so to speak.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I actually really enjoy being in that corporate space because it's a grind and it's a hustle. Some of these people know how to work numbers. They're really good at contracts. They lock in deals. And that for someone like me, it gets the heart pumping and it's like, all right, well, I'm selling something that I really love. And a lot of people in Australia wish they could do this. So why not go all out, go as hard as I can and just do it from the heart and just do it honestly. That's where I think some people, and that's where the companies fall off, is it's not about why they're doing it for purpose. They're doing it for, the investor or to make their bank look fatter. Well, it's just not that product. I hate to say it.
Yeah, no, it clearly requires a lot of passion and a lot of love, and that's not coming from everyone involved. So, no, great point. I'm wondering, in the conversation about Australian cannabis, do you have a take on the idea that, we need to be importing less cannabis from overseas and having more Australian grown cannabis? Do you have a take on that?
Yeah, look, it's a point that obviously has been discussed quite a lot lately, and I do have an opinion on it. And I think why import when you can grow fire here in Australia? My, I guess, rebuttal to that question is why can't people grow fire here in Australia? Again, it goes back to the lack of understanding the plant, the culture, and what the actual consumer wants. So Australia needs to realize what they have and just stop and figure out a recipe that works for their environment rather than looking at all these other countries and saying, oh, there's great product here, it's cheap, let's import it. There's more product in Canada that's cheap, let's import it. I'm an importer and I hate it because I'm not supporting my local farm community. So for me, look, I have to import because there isn't one farm here in Australia that is to my standard yet. There will be very shortly. I'm not going to go any more into that, but there will be. And so that's why we import. And it's not to rub this in other people's faces or anything like that. It's just if we won't consume it, we won't pack it. So it's just that simple for us. But look, that with that said, there are some Australian farmers who are doing really good things. They're coming on with their quality standards in leaps and bounds. They're becoming more aware of the culture and the plant. And, I guess paying attention to overseas markets as well is starting to educate people. Like I said, books, YouTube, podcasts, they all can tell you stories and introduce you to people that can game you up. And I think a lot of these people in Australia are just starting to realize that now. I think the more that happens, you're going to see quality really arise. And I'd hope we do slow down the imports because, like I said, Australian owned, Australian grown, that's something that Australians can be proud of. But like I said, at the moment, it's a tough one.
No, I think you put it really well. I think it's really easy to say we need it, but there's obviously a lot of work to be done on the ownership end, people that own companies, people that are growers, but also I believe we need to see some government regulation and some government subsidies to support a growth industry. This is a growing industry. A lot of people putting a lot of money on the line for, ultimately subpar product to be produced, whether it's moldy, whether it's not good enough. We have a lot of agricultural industries that are subsidized, and this could be another one. We could be a world leader in this.
Yeah, look, that's a really good point. It's funny that you mentioned that is you look at it as an agricultural business. We don't get anywhere near the amount of support that certain other agricultural businesses receive. But then also on the medical side, you look at the funds, that barely any of them give people support for medical cannabis. But they sure as hell will tick the box if you want some opiates or, whatever else. So, it's on both sides. We're not getting the support from the agriculture, the bigger business side, and then we're not getting the support from the pharmaceutical and the government on the other side of the product. It's, we're kind of battling an uphill battle with as many moving parts flying at us as you possibly can. And the way it kind of is it's, I'm not going to say it's the Wild West, but it's pick your own adventure and then figure out how you want to get from A to B.
I guess as the product range in Australia grows, more and more products are coming here, more and more brands are being established. How can the average medical patient make sure they're getting a great product?
Look, I would say education. Just educate yourself on, on the forums, on podcasts, on YouTube. What is good quality cannabis? And then, you can pick up books from Ed Rosenthal about, what terpenes are better suited to certain ailments, what cannabinoids are better for different health ailments. Like, the research is out there, and I would encourage anyone to go out and find as much information about it as they can to then know, all right, well, this is what my body actually wants. It's not what someone tells you need. Cannabis it's about how you feel when you take it, whether it's a sedative, whether it's for pain, whether it's for anxiety, whatever the condition may be, it has to be for you. And so that's what I encourage any patient or anyone even looking to jump into the medical space is, know what you want and do your research. So then when you do consume it, it's not a negative for you. You'll find the positives. You hear people getting sick, they throw up, they, get lightheaded. It's purely because they're not given enough information. And that's down to, again, the companies. They don't know what they're really selling. They just think it's some flowers in a jar. Then, they give a doctor a product sheet which tells them that it's a 30% THC and you'll go to sleep. It's these things, these nuances that make it hard for the patient to want to use medical cannabis, when they should be educated by the doctor. They should be able to access, product sheets, COAs, all of these things that encourages them for safe consumption. It is a whole journey, I think, to find the things that work fit for us as individuals. All we try and do is curate a menu that we think people will enjoy, whether it be, I guess, sedation, relaxation, sleep, whatever the ailment. That's, what we do it for is just to improve quality of life. That was the only thing that, really kept my mum going, was cannabis. For 4 years of battling breast cancer into liver cancer, it was all cannabis. And so to go through that, that's really why we've done this. Is it's not because, we want to make big margins or anything else, or say, hey, we're a cannabis brand. No one really cares. We want to just provide a quality product. And that's the Treehouse journey, really.
No, I do really admire that passion, and I'm also really grateful for you sharing that kind of personal anecdote, because that's, that runs deep, man. And I think that's bigger than the corporate business. That's bigger than the bottom line, is that personal understanding you have and that personal connection and that experience you had with your mum, and how I'm sure it improved her later years in life. So I am really grateful for you, being open enough to share that and for that passion. People always talk about how passion is essential in this industry to survive, and you clearly have that. What else do you think it takes to survive in this industry?
You just you got to have a tough exterior. You just have to want it. I think there's a lot of, I guess, negative space within the space that, you'll come up against more barriers than you will wins. And so I think if you're a person who's chasing the wins, it's probably not an industry that you're built for. I think if you're someone that, generally just wants to be around the plant, providing good quality medicine, enjoys the culture, and just you're on a different journey rather than chasing a paycheck. Obviously, money's great, Don't get me wrong, we can't do anything in this world without money, but you still have to, operate with purpose and do this for a reason. And I think if the reason is because you love cannabis, and some people don't know how to do business, so that's their fault. But if you do, there's a lot of room and space for people to grow in this industry. It's not necessarily hard to get into it. It's just how you navigate it and how you uphold yourself around these other groups. Like walking down the street, none of my team are any different than four dudes in a suit. On the weekend, different story. But, at the end of the day for us, it's just providing something that we'd be proud of. And, I saw that with my mom, and I see that a lot with other people that I meet, is that if you're proud of what you're doing, i.e. creating something that gives someone a better quality of life, well, then you should be happy.
The next question I was going to ask is what gets you excited about work, but I've heard a hell of a lot of things. It's obviously the improving quality of life. I even get jealous of the fact, you're hanging out with your mates and heading off to the gym during the day, and that stuff, it heals the soul. So, I mean, can you quantify it? What gets you most excited? Because you've said a lot of things that I think could answer this question.
Yeah, 100%. Look, like I said, majority of my group and my business partners, we didn't come from a heap. We created a lot. So to do what we've done and create a lifestyle that works for us, to be able to get up and travel wherever we want, to eat wherever we want, drive whatever you want, just enjoy life. I think that is what excites me the most. Is not, oh, hey, we've got a cannabis brand, we've got a company, we do this and that. It's we set out to do something that we would be proud to do. So for me, getting up every morning, going to the office, seeing our team, working with our guys in Europe, working with our guys here in Sydney, our guys in Melbourne, to see people happy and wanting to come to work and be proud of something, that to me is what moves the needle every day. And I think no matter what I'm going through in my personal life, I show up to work knowing that this group of people has my back 100%. So I guess, you could say, oh, look, they get to do all this fun, cool shit. They get to be on weed farms. They fly around the world. They smoke crazy pot. They're around all these people. Like, that's the upside. It's the hard work that people don't see. And I guess that's the other component that excites me is we have this crazy lifestyle over here, but on the other side, like half the team's still in the office. And so to know that shows commitment and passion. And that is the ultimate, I guess, energy for me to feed off is walk into a room and everyone's happy because we've built something that has purpose.
I really appreciate that answer. And as we move towards the latter section of the show and we're about to, have a little break and have a bit of fun with a quiz, I'd like to put to you, what makes truly great cannabis?
Oh, good question. I wish I had a few people here to kind of debate it with. Look, for me, everyone would probably think, it has to look good, it has to be grown indoors and blah, 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 blah. Good cannabis has to first taste good. You have to be able to taste the flavors, whether it be citrus, whether it be gas, whether it be fruit, whether it be candy, whether it be cake, whatever it may be. Like, that's the start. Then euphoric. What does it do? How does it make you feel? Do you want to consume more or do you want to put it down? Then you get to bag appeal. Obviously, you want to try and see what cultivation method it's been grown with. What's in it, i.e., having a look at the COAs for heavy metals, pesticides, and microbials. That's obviously something not everyone can see. But what is good cannabis? It's when you open the bag and go, wow, and then everyone in the room goes, wow. And that's really it. And until people understand that, it's so hard to say what good weed is because you have great photographers, you have really great growers, and then you have what a lot of people would pin as that Instagram weed. Well, that Instagram weed might just taste like nothing. It's just knowing what you're actually looking for. And I always go back to if you open the bag and it's loud, it's probably all right. It doesn't have to look like a diamond, because we all have to remember diamonds still get shaped. Skittles is a big example, something that doesn't look great, but everyone who opens a fresh bag of it is blown away. I mean, Zushi, Blue Zoo, that looks like an outdoor. The flavor profile, the smell, like these things are created by artists. They're creating a time and a moment for you to consume something you're never going to forget about. The flavor, how it made you feel, the activity you might have done with your friends. Like, it all comes down to that's good weed or good medicine. Sorry, I should say medicine.
I love that. It's artistry. I really like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, Jonathan, I have a game for you. It is called Famous Johns.
Yeah.
In this quiz, I'll provide you with hints that should lead you to naming a famous person named John, Johnny, or Jonathan. For each question, there are 2 hints, but feel free to answer even if I have not completed both hints. So there's a 60-second clock. If you're unsure, you can pass. How does that all sound?
Yeah, man, let's roll.
Excellent. All right, starting the clock, let's go. America's most famous country singer. Songs include Walk the Line, Ring of Fire, and Folsom Prison Blues.
Johnny Cash, all day, baby. Johnny Cash.
Dreadlocked lead singer of the band Korn. He plays the bagpipes.
I'm not going to hold it up. Pass.
Jonathan Davis. A member of the legendary rock band The Beatles. Married to Yoko Ono.
Oh, mate, John Lennon. I have an original John Lennon sketch.
Oh, hot.
I kid you not, in my my dad's music room.
US president typically referred to by his initials JFK.
JFK, John F. Kennedy.
Rapper known for hits such as Get Low and Turn Down for What? Yells, yeah! And what?
Little John.
Little John. Prolific in the 1960s, he is one of the most famous American film stars of all time.
John Wayne.
And lucky last, Prime Minister of Australia from 1996 to 2007, famously introduced gun control and the GST.
My good old friend Johnny Howard.
You got it. I think you did really well on that, mate. That was Famous Johns. All right. Let's now talk about your experiences outside of Australia. You mentioned a little earlier in the show. I saw that you won an award at the Denver High Times Medicinal Cup or something like that. Forgive me if I got the name of that wrong. Now, High Times is one of those institutions as a teenager you grow up aspiring to. Tell me about that win.
That takes me back, man. This was like very, very early days, just playing around in the tent in the garage. Markets weren't really established. It was medical. Had some buddies who were like, hey, let's go to these things. Let's try and, drum up some business. And it just kind of snowballed, man. Like, drove down to this event, a big High Times thing, had a couple of bags of weed, bought some jars at the local supermarket, jarred it up, scribbled on the jar. I actually wrote my buddy's name on it because I wasn't a citizen. I was like, hella paranoid.
Yeah, you don't want to get deported.
That happened. But so
are we allowed to talk about that, or is that?
Yeah, we can go through that.
I'll come back to the deportation. So yeah, let's talk about the Cannabis Cup.
Yeah, so it literally put the jars in. There was hundreds of entrants, and I just put it in and we walked off, and whatever. Out back, just smoking weed, left, and then a few days later, my buddy got a phone call. He's like, oh, these 2 jars you put in, you won. It was I think the categories at that time were indoor, sativa, indica, or hybrid, best for hash. It was very minimal, right? And so best indoor, I was all right, sweet. And then, so I'm thinking sick. My friends won some awards. This is man. Anyway, this dude rocks up at our house and he's like, yeah, here you go. Here's your medallions and da-da-da. And then I looked at the box. I'm like, get the fuck out of here. I'm like, are you serious? And the guy's like, which one of you's Jonathan? I'm like, oh, me. He's like, is that your real name? I'm like, yeah, stupidly. And he was like, no, mad respect. And then obviously with that, I got to meet some like really key players in Colorado, and just became a part of like that first early movement of growers. I was just very fortunate to meet some people who wanted to bring me in and just like show me the ropes, and then grew for some dispensaries. They started winning cups, and then it got to a point where we were just really for a year or two just growing to go to competitions, and that sucks. I'm not down for it, and so that was kind of like, I'll just grow for the people and do my own thing. And so yeah, man, I guess throughout the time period of being there, my efforts went towards, I think, about 14 different cannabis cups. They're not all mine. Obviously there's a few that are personal, but everything like what I'm doing now is all team effort.
I have to ask about the deportation. A lot of people talk about the risk associated with being in the cannabis world. I'm not sure it was related to cannabis, but please enlighten me.
Yeah, look, I won't go in crazy detail, but I was in Cuba for the election of a certain president, and things were different. And being a grower, you tend to have cash or things with you that you probably shouldn't. And yeah, long story short, I was shipped back to Australia. Look, I'm 100, and for anyone listening, like I'm 100% clear. I've got a 10-year visa to the States. Like I'm good. It was just you go through things for this plant that can be unnecessary, and it is what it is.
I think it's good to know that trouble with the law isn't necessarily the end of the line for this work. So that's good to hear, and I think that's the takeaway from that. Let's talk about the US a little bit more, a little bit broadly. What are your best experiences in the US? Like where have you seen cannabis done really well there?
Oh, look, my boys from Runts, they've changed the game on cannabis. That whole movement has done wonders. You look at cookies, they've done wonders. Burner and that whole movement there, like, and obviously, I'm just saying two brands that come to mind, but the foot soldiers on the ground who have created all these brands, all these crazy strains, all this crazy artwork and hype behind this industry, like America is a beast when it comes to good cannabis. You can't just have a good brand and have some shit weed. So it's all of these things that I guess there is so much innovation there that as Australians should be looking at to really like catch trends and see, what's next, what should we be doing now to make sure that we stay relevant, stay consistent, and then have purpose.
On the note of staying relevant, I'm curious as to what your thoughts on Amsterdam are, given your experience there, knocking on nearly 20 years ago compared to now. I think the sentiment's starting to be that they're kind of being left behind as the rest of the world progresses. What's your take on what they have done, I guess, historically, and kind of where they're at now?
Yeah, look, it is interesting. Amsterdam is behind in the times. When you look at certain things, they love their hazes, they love that old school genetics, right? But then the new wave, which most people don't really get to see now, is the Cali wave. Everything's candy, everything's, runts this, runts that, or gelato this, sherb that. It's evolved. It's just European Cali. Cali leads the center stage when it comes to brands and cannabis. So you look at the UK, they want everything Cali. You look at Europe, they want everything Cali. You look at Australia, like the black market, they want everything Cali. So there's a new wave of Amsterdam that's come through, but it's foreign for different people who aren't about that, I guess, really flavor chasing. Amsterdam used to be about going there. You go to the Bulldog, you buy a couple of dudes, you puff them up, have a few beers with the boys, and go for a walk. Now it's more like, all right, I'm going to Amsterdam. There's a new drop happening. You meet a grower. It's become Cali. Same with Barcelona. It's the same there. So I would say it's probably changing for the better, because it's changing for the industry that I've been a part of and I've been blessed to watch evolve. Is that whole like young dudes making money off something that we were forbidden to do. It's that whole thing of like your mum told you, oh, money didn't grow on trees. Well, like trees have allowed me to travel and do everything I've wanted to ever do.
I love that. I really, really like that. I haven't thought about it that way. I guess another one is Vancouver. I was lucky to work as a bud tender and in marketing for a growing business for the first couple of years of legalization there. On one hand, as an Australian, I felt incredibly privileged. I tried, I think, 350 different products that I journaled over 2 years. It was just incredible. But at the same time, I'm also very aware that it kind of federal legalization disregarded the legacy market, particularly in BC. It is difficult for consumers to have, like brand loyalty given the packaging restrictions and things like that. So given that you were there in the kind of the true spirit of BC Bud prior to federal legalization, how do you see how things have gone there now? Overall, is it a good thing? Have they thrown the baby out with the bathwater? Is it a bit devastating? What do you think about Canada?
Look, Canada is, they've been constrained by an industry that could have been so giving. They made a business model that really only benefits the government. Like you pay $1 tax on every gram before you make $1. It is quite interesting to watch. I have a lot of friends who are still there. They have very successful cultivation businesses and brands. But seeing what I was seeing in like 2007, 8, and 9, I think Canada needs a recreation, and I think that's happening. It's taken 18 years.
Yeah. It's a shame to see a place with such an enormous legacy with cannabis because, a lot of people think that Canada's model could be copied here. And I have strong opinions
Yeah,
about not doing
yeah,
that. But I certainly see that given, that we don't have that long-standing history, there might be a better argument for it. I still don't want it. But, Canada really kind of threw away an entire coast's history over kind of 40, 50 years of making really brilliant stuff. They're not putting some sketchy guy out of business. They're putting out the best growers out of business. The
yeah.
best guys that are, approaching 70 who are living on Vancouver Island growing small batch, beautiful cannabis you're not going to find in any store. And they've been left by the wayside, which is really sad.
Yeah, man, it's a very interesting market over there. I think the sharks and the whales just throw the checkbook around, and I mean, look, I've seen it firsthand. I've worked for them, so I'm speaking from experience. Is that again, these people are not doing this for the passion of the plant, and cannabis just felt the wrath of the stock market cannabis cowboy.
Yeah, oh, big time. I've joked on this show quite a few times the amount of boomers that came in and yelled at me personally for their stocks going down.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I always think to people, well, why invest in something that you never would have put your money into in the first place?
I had one guy mad at me because he'd lost $80,000 on Aurora. And I'm like, dude, I earn $18 an hour. I am not the guy you should be mad at. But, this was the discourse happening at the time.
Yeah, yeah, and the whole, I guess cannabis companies going public. It's not what it's meant to do.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess looking at the world as a whole, you are well traveled, you're well experienced. Is there anywhere we should really be learning some good lessons from? Is there somewhere that you've seen do it really well? Because there are different approaches all across the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think we can look at every country participating in the space and look at what they're doing wrong versus what they're doing right, and come up with a model and an educational body that will allow this industry here in Australia to perform at its peak rather than be handcuffed and restrained, much like the Canadian market.
On that note, do you have a vision for Australian adult use legalization?
Of course. Look, I'd be lying to say I'm not a big advocate for adult use, but at the end of the day, for someone like me, I'm in the space. I'm doing exactly what I set out to do from the get go. So, a lot of people ask me, am I all for adult use? Am I all for legalization? I am, but I'm already in the space. So, what I would like to see is people start to look at, their operation, how they can do better, how they can educate their staff, how they can create more culture within their entity, and just provide quality services. It shouldn't be about tearing down the big guy because, he's advertised somewhere and you don't have the budget to do that, or someone selling a product that's a little bit more expensive than yours. So you then have to tarnish that. We need to look at ourselves and hold ourselves accountable and all say, hey, we can do better as an industry. And, going back to my LinkedIn post, yeah, they poke and prod, but it's not necessarily about a single person. It's about a group and an industry that not many people within those groups have actually stopped and said, oh, hey, we can do better. Your product's rubbish. You can do better. Oh, hey, your product could be better if you do this, X, Y, and Z. No, I'm not going to listen to you. It's all of those nuances that are really constraining us here. I go back to Australia could be one of the premium producers of medical cannabis. It's just we let ourselves down on ego. We want to report about our financial earnings before we want to report about testimonials, patient, satisfaction. Sorry, and all the things that actually matter. Because I think these people forget that without quality of product and sales, you don't have a damn business. And we're seeing that. It's like you've got these companies, they go raise all this money, they build these crazy big farms, and we're not selling anything.
And wear PPE in your grow facilities, people.
Yeah, look, it's funny. I've seen everything. I've done everything. I've worn flip flops. I've had my dogs in the grow. We've done everything. But this is medicine, i.e., a pharmaceutical. I don't want to see bugs in my fucking Panadol. We need to adhere to standards, and those standards just don't get met because people get lazy. As an industry, we need to hold each other accountable. I need to be able to ring a friend up and say, hey, your grow's garbage this run. What happened? Oh, well, we had weather, we had environmental problems, whatever it may be. It shouldn't be, oh, you can't tell me what to do. That's not right.
No, I like it and I appreciate your work, man. So now it's time for a segment we call Pools of Wisdom. And though we value the long form conversation, we try to leave the listener with one key takeaway, dinner party fact, or even a call to action. So Jonathan, what is your Pool of Wisdom?
I guess if you're going to do anything, do it with purpose. If you're going to do anything with cannabis, do it with the intention to do it well. That's it.
I love it. It's concise, it's short, it's sweet.
Yeah, look, people love to overcomplicate the most simplest thing. Hence where the Australian industry is with cannabis.
Yeah, that's almost like Australia to a T. Let's overcomplicate everything. Let's overregulate everything, but, hopefully to good ends.
Yeah, look, as long as people strive to do better, I think we're winning.
So if our listeners are wanting to learn more about the things you're doing, what's the best way for them to get in touch with you?
Probably just LinkedIn or my personal Instagram. But I try not to share a lot about what we do here in Australia. I just show my journey behind what I'm doing to people. Obviously, with the way the rules are, I can't talk about brands and or any of the product. For me, LinkedIn and a bit of Instagram just shows the background story for people to just feel comfortable about, oh, hey, this guy's actually doing something. He's not just in an office buying off a piece of paper and, oh, it's a good price. I'm actively, me and the team, shout out to the Treehouse team, all we care about every day is what's fire in a jar and how are we going to get that to the next patient. That's like the common goal every morning is like, what can we do better?
I like that for you guys, that's the bar. I hope that many other people take that bar on as well, because it's really important that standard is set. So, dude, this has been a really enlightening conversation. It's been a really enjoyable conversation, and I've really appreciated your time today. So, Jonathan Jones, CEO of Treehouse Distribution, it's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks for having me, Paul. You're a legend. Thanks for taking the time to listen to the stories and me waffle on about, what I like and what I don't like. But I just hope that, me sharing a story encourages people just to do a little bit better and just strive to do well. I mean, the plant deserves it, and I think the people deserve it even more. So appreciate you, man.